Vice Mayor Wade?
Here.
Okay, everybody is present and accounted for. Is there a motion to approve or to amend the agenda?
Move for approval?
Second.
Okay, as we get to cast our votes.
Oh, where are we?
There we go. The agenda is approved. The meeting is going to be divided, as always, into three main sessions. First is a work session to hear and discuss presentations that do not require a council vote. Second, we will have a closed meeting around 5:30 or so, and then a city council business meeting, which will begin around 6:30. So we'll start off on the 4 o'clock agenda. First item up is the budget kickoff. Ms. Hamill, are you starting us off?
I am. If you can believe it, I'm back.
Yes.
Another budget season already.
It was just 6 months ago that we
Yeah.
got rid of you,
I know, and here I am.
like a bad penny.
Exactly. David, can you pull up my presentation, please? So today we're going to kick off the budget for the 25 budget. We're going to go through today. Next slide, please. Today we're going to talk about the dates in terms of the budget and the budget process, both from a staff perspective, a council perspective, for the public. We're going to talk a little bit about some budget drivers that we're anticipating for this year's budget, and then we'll close it out with any questions or comments or concerns that you all have as we're getting started. So with that, next slide, please. So staff has already been working on the 25 budget for about 2 months now. We spent August going through and presenting new requests both for the CIP and operating. That was the month of August. In the month of September, staff has been working to update CIP proposals. Those were for projects that were already in the 5-year plan, updating those, and they are actually due tomorrow, as well as going back and providing us information with projects that were approved prior to FY24. So any ongoing project, we're getting updates on those. For the month of October, staff will be working on their operating budgets, and then in November and December, they will be meeting with the city manager and the budget team to go over those proposals. And then finally, the city manager will be presenting his proposed budget to you all in March. So that's sort of the staff timeline. Next slide, please. So some key dates for council to keep in mind. February 15th, this is the glorious day that we all talk about. We used to say that the budget is balanced by then. I'm going to change that a little bit to say that the total budget amount is set by then. And that is because that is the date that we will be advertising the real estate tax rate and also the required rollback calculation in the Daily Progress. It's important to note that as of July 1, there was a state law change. Previously, we had to advertise this 30 days in advance, and the state law changed that to make it more consistent with other tax rates. So we only technically have to advertise 7 days. However, from an administrative standpoint, we are asking council to stick with the 30-day advertisement rate, simply because it would be almost impossible for us to change our proposed budget and have a presentation balanced and ready in 7 days, should you decide to change the tax rate at that point.
Good idea. So, quickly, Chrissy, what is the Daily Progress new distribution process? You know, I guess it's always been, will be online, but they mail the paper out. So does that factor into this?
It will, because we're only required 7 days notice. We're going to shoot for 30.
Okay.
So we'll have plenty of extra time. You know, should something happen in a very short window that we needed to re-advertise, we have, it just gives us more flexibility. So we can advertise longer, but we have to do it at least 7 days before the public hearing. March 5th is the date the city manager will be presenting the actual proposed budget to you formally. That's also the day that the school board will be coming to present their budget to council. March 18th will be the first budget and tax rate public hearing. April 1st will be the second public hearing. And then April 9th will be the date that we officially adopt the budget. Next slide, please. So we do have our normal work sessions scheduled. That is March 7th, March 14th, March 28th, and April 4th. We'll be spending, I think they're all Thursdays, so we'll be spending every Thursday evening together for the month of March. Next slide, please. There is also this year a community budget forum that is scheduled on March 21st. This is an opportunity for the community to come and share their ideas about the budget with council. We will also use that date as our public hearing for the budget as well. Next slide, please. So just sort of a graphical presentation here for you to see the things that council is involved in. We will have 4 work sessions, 2 public hearings, community budget forum, and then formally you will adopt the budget on April 9th. Next slide. Our city manager will also be having a community budget forum as well, and this is an opportunity for the public to come on January 11th. It'll be held at the Carver Recreation Center. The public is invited to come and share their ideas with the city manager. This will be just about a month, or not quite a month, before the city manager will be presenting his budget to council, so this is the last opportunity for the public to weigh in before we actually start putting things into print. Next slide, please. A new thing that we're doing this year, we did one meeting with you all last year where we had a couple of the larger departments come and brief council on their departments, their operations, to give you just kind of an overview of what they do and some of their challenges. Mr. Sanders has mapped out a schedule where for all of the 4 o'clock meetings starting tonight and moving on till the last one is in January 2nd, there will be departments coming to present, and there are schedules up front. There's also schedules on the budget webpage. So tonight, in true fashion, to be the first guinea pig, the city manager will talk about his office, as well as Ms. Thomas for the clerk of council, the city attorney, Mr. Stroman, and Mr. Engel with economic development will be presenting tonight as well. Next slide, please. There's also, for the capital budget process, we have 2 opportunities in which we will meet with the Planning Commission to talk about the draft of the CIP. The first one is what we call a work session. That's on November 28th. And then the public hearing, which is with council and the public, will have an opportunity to speak on the draft, is December 12th. Next slide, please. So where can you get information? Please check out our budget website. We're at www.charlottesville.gov/budget. We try to put all the information out there for you that's available for both the work sessions. Next slide, please. If you go out, we have a wonderful online budget book, but council will also be getting your printed proposed budget book this year when we produce the proposed budget. But if you go to the budget website, you can view the city's online budget book as well as print an entire copy in a PDF if you choose. Additionally, next slide, please. Want to remind you we have some other information. We do have a work sessions webpage, and so as materials become available for the work sessions, we'll be posting those out here, and the public and anyone can go and view those and download those if they wish. Next slide, please. We also have the Budget Explorer tool, which, as we've talked about before, this is updated quarterly. This provides you with both a quarterly report as well as an opportunity to choose any department and to drill down into their line item budgets. There is also a CIP summary, which for every active CIP project, you can take a look at the budget and what's been expended and the available budget balance of that budget for those projects as well. And again, that is updated quarterly, and it's usually, if the quarter ends on the 30th of the month, it's usually updated by about the 15th or the 20th it relates to when finance actually closes that quarter in the financial system. Next slide, please. So what are we anticipating for this budget? As with every budget, there's always more needs than resources. We do know that some of the largest drivers that we'll be considering for this budget cycle are collective bargaining, class and comp, homeless intervention, affordable housing, city schools, both from an operating standpoint, both for operations and collective bargaining, as well as their capital needs. Few honorable mentions with this year's budget. Our biggest revenue source are the real estate assessments. That data is not really available in total until January. So we go through a lot of this process, which is kind of what this picture is meant to depict, is that we go through a lot of this process, kind of shooting darts everywhere until we can sort of nail down what our numbers are. Additionally, federal funding, the last 2 years we've gotten large influx of cash from the federal government, both with CARES and ARP. We do not anticipate we get any more kinds of money like that. And those are one-time funds that we have used throughout the budget, and some of those programs we have incorporated in the budget, some are still to do that as well. And then the year-end surpluses, they are one-time funds as well. So as the finance director will be coming to you in November or December, just keep in mind, we've talked about that that's going to be a big number, but those are for one-time uses. And next slide, please. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions or comments or concerns that you all have regarding the process or the dates or any of that.
Questions?
So
comments?
I mean, at this point, I don't have any concerns. I guess, do you have any concerns at this point from, your crystal ball?
You know my crystal ball always has concerns.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
No.
Dude.
I mean, I think this is no different than any other budget cycle. I think we have to work through the information, and we'll take it one step at a time, and we'll keep you all informed as we go. And I would ask the same of you as I think the city manager would. If there are things that you want to see or things that are important to you, let us know as early as possible so that we can make sure we're working with an eye to those priorities.
Thank you, Chrissy. It's always good to see you. So the surplus that we're projecting for last fiscal year, which we'll talk about in I guess a couple of months, you said November? Okay.
November, December, it's whenever the audit is finished.
Got it. And I don't even remember now all of the sort of things we were hoping to pay for with the surplus when we finished our budget deliberations in the spring. But I'm sure y'all will remind us and show us what we need to use those funds for.
We will.
Yeah.
And just keep in mind with that, our policy is that any surplus by policy reverts to the CIP for one-time uses. And so that's a real important thing from the rating agency standpoint, as well as that we comply with our policy. Once that goes to the CIP, it still sits there until council has an opportunity to allocate that. So it's not like once that comes to you that you have to assign it and spend it at that moment. It goes and waits. So just keep that in mind as well.
Because I know we had some budget issues with the Buford School. I understand they got a grant or something that offset some of that, but I'll definitely be interested in knowing how all that all shook out.
Yeah, and that
With
will
respect to, like, the
probably
auditorium
likely be
and-
coming back to you as a separate item prior to the year-end surplus.
Okay.
Because we did put the full amount in the CIP last year, so it is fully funded. The grant that they received, council actually has to appropriate that, as does the school board, and that's in process right now. So we'll
Okay.
come back for an additional discussion on that.
Great, thank you.
First, just a comment for the public. I'd really encourage anyone to use that tool on the website of each department. I know we get a lot of feedback. Some people say they don't feel like they have enough information about each department, but that really breaks it down line item. And if there's anyone who thinks there's not enough information for a department, check out that tool and tell us what you want to see there, because there really is a wealth of information there. The only question I have, I'm sure we'll get this information, down the road, but is there known yet whether there's a dollar amount needed in our budget for this upcoming budget cycle for collective bargaining and the wage and comp study?
I think the accurate answer is we're still waiting through that, so we do not have numbers. I think some proposals are floating around, but in terms of evaluating those to know the cost yet, we do not know.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
A lot is the word.
Oh,
That's the technical.
That's the technical word.
Oh.
True financial.
I didn't even say that.
She did.
No, we'll need triple the surplus, which is a lot. Chrissy, thank you and to your department for all the hard work that you've done. It's interesting for me to be on this side of the table as to where I was before, but you and your team have always been very efficient, always there to help. And I would like to encourage people to come to the work sessions, but also to come to the session that our newly selected city manager is hosting, because we need to hear from the community before. It's very easy for people to sit back and be complacent, and then when things happen, everyone wants to complain. So if you have something you need to say and you want to get it off of your chest, in looking at your proposed dates, there is ample opportunity for people to do that. And we know that our community does not mince words. The emails fly on a regular basis. But for those of you that really would like to be heard in another manner, please utilize these opportunities. And again, thank you to your staff. And I don't know if you're going to introduce to us your new staff member.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Emma McMahon is our newest budget analyst. And I'll also give a shout out to my other colleague, Brian Ray, who is, I call the man behind the curtain. He is the one that designed the Budget Explorer that Councilor Payne was talking about. So I do have I'm lucky to have a really good team. Thank
Welcome.
you.
So I have only one request, and that is that I hope someone will send a list of all of the dates to me, because I don't actually use the city's calendar. I use my own calendar. I need to transfer things. So if folks...
I'll be happy to.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll send it to everybody.
Great.
Thanks.
Because
When
you're giving us a
actually-
lot of dates there. I mean, really.
So there is this, and this is on the city webpage. There's also some copies down there. This is a schedule on one page of all the public budget meetings. But I will send you this as well as the dates for like the important stuff.
Thank you.
Sure.
And yeah, I'll just echo everybody else. I know how hard you end up working and how many different times we throw you curveballs in March and April. And I hope this will give us an opportunity to throw you curveballs earlier in the process.
Sounds good. We'll look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
maybe
you.
a knuckleball.
And I'm going to turn it over to our city manager for the first council briefing from the departments.
Good evening, councilors and the public. Like to display what I ask of others. I do it myself, so I'm coming before you this way to present, just so that we can kick this thing off. I do want to roll back a little bit to some of the things that Chrissy discussed, and really to get at what Councilor Payne said. You'll see in the slides that David is pulling up for me right now that we have big things. And while Chrissy just said that this is just like any other budget. I can't believe she said that. This is not just like any other budget. We have a lot going on that we're attempting to do from a financial perspective. I think what she's speaking to is she's going to figure it out, because that's what I tell her all the time. I know you'll figure it out. But the reality is that collective bargaining, comp and class is a big deal. That's a lot of cash injections that will be required. Thank you. I was looking for it. Thanks, sir. That's going to be a lot at one time. We're trying to figure out exactly how to do that. That's part of what the conversation with the staff has been on how do we implement this. Collective bargaining has a prescribed process. We have contracts that we have to sign. That's going to actually unveil what the true costs are going to be as we get close to that, and we'll be able to price it. But when we get to comp and class itself, that's going to be a multi-year process. We're going to have to figure out what our top priorities are, what's the best way to really to mitigate some of the impacts of modernizing our pay system. So with those things, I think that's what Chrissy's speaking to. It's no different than any other year because she fights through the process in her way. But we'll get through it. But our goal is to let you know a lot more or as early as possible because I'm trying to make sure that I keep the staff up to date as well. So I'm going to go over the city manager's office budget, which is a really small piece of the pie. But what I did in this briefing is I'm going to more or less cover what are things about that particular office budget, which is small, but then kind of highlight some of the big things that I've even started talking about already. So this year's city manager's budget was $1.4 million, and most of that is just staff. And the issue with that at the moment is it also has the budget team in there. We've been making some transitions to identify all of the offices individually. So we've moved some things around, and we'll probably finish that up this year with pulling them out into their own budget line because Chrissy does have a budget for her office. And then that way the city manager's budget, when you see it in the book and online, it'll be an accurate number. Next, I have this. I don't have to say next slide. I'm supposed to advance it. There we go. We always take a moment just to help the public understand, because I always remind you what the role of the city manager is. You set the strategy and the vision. I do everything else. So ultimately what the administration aspect of it is that I am here to implement council's vision, and I do that with the support of the staff. All of the team members are part of this process. We implement policies, and we take directives from council. You all are the ones who carry the burden of figuring out what those things are, and then we are the professional staff that gets it done. This is the city manager's office today. Myself, Terry Bentley, and Teresa Pollock, the two individuals who keep the office going. They really are the bosses. I will say that. They're the ones that keep it all going. I do have 3 deputy city manager positions. Stephen Hicks has joined as an interim at this moment, but he's working his way to dropping the interim. He wants me to do it sooner, and we're going to make sure we get it done. And Ashley Reynolds Marshall is deputy city manager for racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then there is a 3rd position, DCM of administration. That position has not been filled since I've been here, but I am dropping for that this month. I'll be advertising to fill that spot. It hasn't taken very long for me to realize how many more hands I need to do this work. So getting that 3rd person at a high level would be very helpful for me as well.
So Sam, quickly, sir, you're going to have 2 positions advertised?
Well, it'll be one position for deputy city manager for administration that I'll be advertising.
Okay, I thought you were saying, Steve position.
Well, he's in the role in an interim capacity. We'll decide if we have to advertise that or not. That's what he's trying to get me to figure out.
Okay.
Yes. I gave him a laundry list of things to do that I was carrying. So if he can make those things happen, I may not need to look for somebody else. That's what.
I got it.
Is that fair?
Okay, Steve, you're on the clock. He's got a punch list. Look at him. Look.
Why not pass the pressure around?
14.
18.
All right, where do I point this? It's not.
It's not moving? Oh, there it is.
Oops.
No, go
Go
back.
Thank you.
Go
Just
back.
catching up.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Let's see where I'm not supposed to be. Budget. All right, so this is just a quick look. Again, so FY24 adopted budget, total budget is $1.4 million, as I said. Most of that you see is in the personnel category. Very small items that have been used by the office itself. Most of the resources that are spent are just in all the various department budgets across the entire organization. For FY24, we know that there was a decrease as we started to move some things around. And as I said, in FY25, we'll finish that process. But just to highlight some things, just so that the public is aware of what those line items mean. In the contractual area and other expenses area, that is where we paid Poly Hire to do the city manager search that was conducted late spring into the summer. Zen City is a communications tool. The prior city manager wanted to test this. It was a tool that is a communications tool. that we learned about at an ICMA conference, and he was intrigued by it and wanted to see how we could deploy it. We've actually had it active for a little bit, and when our new director comes before you, she'll tell you where we stand. I think we're probably going to pass on it, but she still probably has some ability to use it. It was just an opportunity for us to just figure out additional ways for public engagement. That's one of the priorities that we've added to that particular office. So that was one of the reasons for testing that out. And then the Robert Bob Group was, of course, the big ticket item that you all have been paying for the time that Mr. Rogers was here. We were paying that firm directly, so that appeared in the budget. And then Acela is one of our contracted vendors that is the backbone for MySeaville. So we pay an annual contract for keeping that alive. But we'll be able to move some things around, and then from there, I think we'll have a much cleaner vision for when you go and look at the city manager's budget. If someone wants to complain to me about how much I'm spending, it'll be probably small. And then I'll be able to say I didn't spend that much.
Yeah, you said the communication software that Mr. Rogers had, intrigued him. Just quickly, like, what do you mean? Like,
it was a software program that he liked it because the way it was sold to us is it was a better way for public engagement. So we could plan out a campaign that we wanted to run, and the public could go to this site and engage with that site versus calling and doing all the various things. It was one place to go. We tried it. I don't know that everybody liked it. We didn't necessarily get too far with it, and ultimately my thought was to leave it until Afton got here and let her play around with it and see if she had a vision for it. So I guess we'll find that out soon.
okay, thank you.
That's all. Okay, next. Just objectives for the year. My work plan, which I'll be presenting to you all later this evening. Strategic plan implementation, of course, that is your big ticket item that you just successfully adopted, and now it is my responsibility with the team's help to implement that. And then naturally, organizational excellence is always something that I would strive to highlight, and you put it in the strategic plan to give it a centerpiece effect, but it is really a part of management, and that's one of the things that I'll always remember. So with strategic plan implementation, that is a 5-year plan that you all adopted. Ultimately, the goal is to make sure that we can get some work going on all those things, and I'll present that this evening so that everyone will see how I am attacking all 9 plus the JEDI commitment, so I consider it 10 strategic outcomes that we're trying to prioritize. I'll lay that out for you all to see that, and we will continue to engage Raftellus. I think it's important for us to have enough of a resource available to support staff, and it's producing basically the goals and the actions that need to be taken on to be able to fulfill this over the next 5 years. With organizational excellence, the key things for me: filling the key positions, improving morale, and retaining the team. As it relates to filling the key positions, I think we're doing a really good job at that. We're attacking as many positions as we possibly can at the same time. We've been fortunate that in recent postings we're getting back to normal, where we get multiple responses, multiple quality responses, I should say. And that's making it a little bit easier for us to find who we're looking for that can come and join this team and take us where we're trying to go. With improving morale, that's always going to be complicated. There's a lot to that. This workforce, I think the number one mission for me is to fix compensation. I think that's what I've heard consistently. We know that that is an important matter for anyone. But because we have fallen so far behind, it's important for us to get this right. That's the reason why collective bargaining has its place, comp and class has a priority, and we'll have to figure out how to balance the cost of those two things, and then we'll get them integrated into our process for going forward. As it relates to comp and class, we did engage the department heads, so this is an update for you as to where we are. We're doing step placements right now, so that's when the individual employee will be placed on their step based on the various factors that go into considering that. Everyone is kind of becoming an HR guru. They've been trained by HR on how to evaluate. It's not because you like them. It's not because they're doing great work. It's because of these key things that are consistently applied. So what that'll conclude in the next couple weeks. And then the HR team will take some time with that, and then they will go and they'll more or less approve, adjust, and then finally bring to me a final version of what that is. We'll take a look at it, confirm that we're satisfied that everyone has been fairly evaluated and placed, and then Chrissy gets the hard work of pricing all of that and making sure that we can then determine how to afford that. And that's where it may turn into we have to make certain decisions to do things in an incremental period versus all at once, or at least I'll provide the information to you, and then you can choose to do other things if that is your choice. But ideally, the goal, again, is driving employee morale. The first part of that for me is to make sure that we are demonstrating to the team that we're getting compensation right. And then we'll do a number of internal things of engaging the employees and talking more about things and letting them participate in things so that they feel a part of it, because I think that is of value as well. And that's how we retain them. So challenges. Challenges. We have many of them. But everybody does. So there's nothing different about the fact that we have challenges. Our things are big ticket things. That's really the biggest challenge. So from an overall budget perspective, and my money bags, is what I call Chrissy, is always going to struggle with trying to make it all fit through and get it done at the same time. So the multiple priorities make it a challenge. And that's the reason why we have to strategize and figure out what's best for now. And at times we have to say no. And I've said that over and over, no can be an answer, but sometimes it's no, not right now, and then we'll get back to it. And if we can figure out when we can get back to it, I think people will better accept some of the things that we may have to do as making a tough decision. With that, change is hard, and we have to manage expectations. So that's one of the hardest parts of doing the job, and I think we know that. I think we recognize that. That's internal and external. So we'll be able to tackle the challenges as best as we can, but ideally I think we'll strategize and make sure that we are taking the measured steps that need to be taken. Using fairness as a driver for most of what we do. So with that, any questions for me?
So, Mr. Sanders, we've talked a lot about class and comp and what that's going to mean, and it's going to be a financial heavy lift. And if we ultimately go to a phase in, your team, i.e. you and Chrissy, will make suggestions as to how to prioritize that phase in? Yes?
She will make those recommendations to me because she doesn't want to make that decision.
Okay.
And then I will be the one who has to ultimately make that ultimate
Okay.
decision.
And so in phasing in, are you thinking a 2-year period, a 3-year period, or as long as it takes?
That means as long as it takes.
Okay.
No, I think ideally, we're probably talking 3 years.
Okay.
We're talking 3 good years just as a fair place to start, but I may have to come back and adjust that, so I reserve that right. It's not until we get through the bargaining process and truly figure out what those 3 units desire and then what that costs, because we have to have a contract. So we're going to have to find out what that's going to be and then price that all alone. But in doing that, it's going to also drive what the priority would be on the comp and class side.
Right.
Because one thing that I'm most concerned about with this workforce is because 3 units were able to form and to negotiate for what they want, everybody else is waiting saying, what about me? And part of the balancing act that I feel that I'm obligated to figure out is how best do I respond to that question by at least ensuring that I did something. So in doing something, it may be a small step for some, a nice size step for some others, and a big step for a few others. And then over the next few years, then we might reverse who that is so that everybody gets a feel for what those 3 different steps may feel like. And ideally, we get everybody where we want them to be in that period of time.
And understanding through the process why I got a little step and you
Sure.
got a big step, or Juan got a medium step.
Right. And I think that's my responsibility with Afton's help as well as the budget team. We're going to be in HR. We have to figure all this stuff out. And that's really what the work is right now, is we're figuring it all out. And then as we figure it out, we will communicate. Because I think that's what people really want to understand. I've had people who've come back to me already and said, I understand. If I hadn't told them that, they would have been mad at me. But I told them something, and they said, thank you for at least telling me that, because now I'm not sitting here wondering and believing the worst. You just told me that I need to wait until January, and that's when I'll find something out about this. So I'm trying my best to figure out milestone moments. I talked to the team about when can we tell people this. So I think that's really what's driving me and wanting to be able to keep everybody on the boat with me. Just kinda
And
going
that's a
along.
part of building trust.
Yes.
And keeping up morale.
Absolutely. That's right. And again, dealing with the hard facts that if I can't do it, I'm going to say it. And I think that's what I need to be able to tell them. And I think at least they'll appreciate knowing. They may not necessarily like it, but at least they appreciate it knowing and not wondering.
But it'll be, you can't do it because, it just
Correct.
won't be a flat out no.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Thanks.
Unless there's something that comes from you or it just comes up in the process that is the truth, that is a no.
Okay.
But I'll explain that too.
One question, I know, I think last budget cycle, I think there was ultimately like $500,000 allocated to the city manager's office, like a strategic use for the city manager. What is the status of those funds?
Thankfully, it hasn't been touched because it's what I'm looking at for homeless intervention right now as we speak. So I think that was a good move. And you'll see in the budget proposal that I'm probably going to ask for something like that again for this moment, just because there's a flexibility that is needed. And I think you trust me to run the entire budget. So giving me a piece to actually be in charge of with my own pen would also be helpful.
Okay.
Part of that process and part of what I'll explain a little bit later is I'm looking in all the cushions for every dollar I can find right now because that proposition is very expensive.
Okay.
One quick question, and I don't know, I thought it was going to be coming out your budget, and that is the renovation of this space here. I mean, before the flood and things like that, we had talked about putting, doing something to this in the future.
Yeah, the only thing that this room is slated to get is new carpet. And that is from the flood that occurred in August. That has already been identified, and that is only because insurance is covering that. So that is going to happen probably later this month. We may end up, our goal is that after the second meeting, they're going to come in, take all the chairs out, rip up the carpet, put new carpet, put the chairs back. So you have new carpet, but you won't have the yellow chairs to go away. But the room itself is not slated for renovation. That has not been on the list. I think that's something that if you want it on the list, we would need to talk about it. But the reality is that it wouldn't come up very soon with the backlog that we currently have. So it could be on the list, but it'll be a couple of years at least. Unless we just flat out outsourced it somehow and did it.
I think it's fair to say that the doing something about the unhoused population is going to take a higher priority.
Mission number one, yes, sir.
Than this. Other questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who or what is next?
Come to this side so we don't have to switch the controller. So I think David has the presentation. I'm hoping I can see from
Yep.
here.
Oh.
I'm so used to looking at my computer. So I'm presenting to you the report for our office, which is the council and clerk of council or chief of staff clerk of council office. And I tried to pack what we do into a nice little paragraph package. A lot of what we do doesn't fit neatly into a package, into one little paragraph description, so I will just read to you what we have. The clerk of council office performs work related to the operation of the city and provides administrative direction and support for the legislative body. Many duties are prescribed by state and local law. Duties include recording and certifying official council actions and records, notifying the public of council meetings, administering the agenda preparation and publishing process, managing the boards and commissions appointment process, serving on the Sister Cities Commission, notarizing various city documents, and the clerk of council is the official keeper of the city seal. Where did you point?
In the middle.
There
There
we
you
go.
go.
Okay, so the current staffing that we have is an office of 3, and that includes myself as chief of staff, clerk of council. We have a deputy clerk of council, Maxilia Robinson, and administrative assistant, Monica Mallory. That is the 3 positions that were allocated in the FY24 budget, and we provide support to 5 council members, to the public, to all city departments, and nearly 40 boards and commissions and their liaisons. So here's a snapshot of our department budget, and this includes 3 cost centers, which are the clerk of council, Sister City, and right now it's listed as mayor and city council. For future budgets, we will have that listed as city council budget since we are a council manager form of government and not a strong mayor. So you will notice that in the upcoming budget. One thing that I would like to note as far as sister cities, the allocation that they usually get each year is allocated in a lump sum, but when they do incur expenses, we record those two separate line item, budget line items, so that they are accurately recorded. So when you go out onto the budget online, you might see a number for the actuals that looks different from what was adopted, because their items were listed only in a lump sum.
Okay.
So what is new? And I'll start with Sister Cities. Sister Cities Commission is currently in pursuit of a sister city relationship with a Spanish-speaking sister city, and Huehuetenango, Guatemala was selected as that city. So we're currently in friendship status, which will go through late 2024. And an invitation was extended to a delegation to visit us from Huehuetenango. Sister Cities is still currently in the feasibility phase of whether that visit will actually work out. I think there are some financial pieces that are still needed, that they need to work through.
For them to come here?
Yes, yes. And they did tell us beforehand that they would cover their own expenses, so I think that's the part that we're trying to confirm. Sister Cities has implemented a travel scholarship program, and that is related to delegation trips, as well as any student groups that might travel to our sister cities, which right now we have Besançon, France, Poggio a Caiano, Italy, and Winnebago. So we have supported several trips to those countries. The application process, I think it starts in March. I want to say it's just one time of a year that people can apply, and they can get up to $1,000 just depending on the need. They would be responsible for covering their other costs, but the commission wanted to at least be able to help with a little bit. And a post-trip report is required for those who are granted the scholarship. So what is new with the council and clerk office? So council did adopt the strategic plan framework on September 5th, 2023. So we look forward to all the work that's going to be involved in getting that underway. We've developed boards and commissions recruitment cards so that council can, as they're out and about, hand these cards out, and it'll link people directly to our vacancy page on our city website, as well as the application, so you can go directly there and see where you want to serve. And the latest is the addition of a new position, and this is the Freedom of Information and Public Records Officer position. It was previously housed in another department. The Freedom of Information Officer was advertised at one point, but not filled, and just through time, it has developed into something more than just freedom of information. We've added the Public Records Officer component to it. So it's a very robust position, and this person will be very much needed. They will report to the Clerk of Council, Chief of Staff, and the position has not yet been posted, but we expect that that will be posted within the next week or so.
Who does that role now? You may have just said that.
The duties have been delegated to Teresa Pollock for now. The demand on this position is a very high demand, so this would be a standalone position to handle those duties.
Thank you.
And we are one of few organizations that would have a standalone position for that.
And if I could, just to add, for the public's benefit as well as council, this is a part of organizational excellence, right? Public records is critical. We are required to maintain. We probably have not necessarily maintained the way that we need to. We have disparate ways of doing things. This is really to centralize an opportunity under our clerk who has experience in this space. That's also the reason for choosing to have her oversee it. It wasn't too much arm twisting. But I think it's important that we make sure that we can handle all the volume of inquiries that come in, but also manage all the many records in the right way so that they're available when needed.
Especially the list of leases.
That's right.
So would the public records officer, I mean, one of my sort of wish list items has been that we had the ability to have some sort of a database of city documents, public records, if you will, that would enable somebody to say, you know, I want to see the documents that, when the Belmont Bridge was first approved, what did people say about that? And to be able to have some indexing process to say, okay, that would have been the meeting in 2011, and here are the minutes from that. And basically to allow a Google searchability kind of a thing for city records. Now, some of the city records, I gather, are not OCR'd, so that would be very difficult to do without an additional step. But if we had that ability, I would think that not only would it be easier for people like me who like to go Googling around at 3 o'clock in the morning and don't really want to call up the clerk of council at 3 o'clock in the morning to say, help me out with this, but also people, we know we have a very curious citizenry, and they're going to want to find everything like that too, and I would think it would be a really great public service. Is that something that we could, I mean, again, it's sort of my wish list. Is that a possibility?
That's kind of something that's also on my wish list. There are records retention rules that tell us when we need to destroy items and how long we need to keep items. So if it falls in that Library of Virginia retention schedule, then those are things we can keep. Creating databases for helpful information is something that I think we should look into.
And I would just echo that. I think our old website certainly wasn't perfect, but I think it was better than our current system for being able to do that in some ways.
Yeah.
And I would just very much echo that. I imagine it's something we may need, if we go that direction, we may need to outsource or something like that. But I think it would be an incredibly important resource for the public.
And it may be that at least part of the answer is hire a student or two for the summer to just sit there and prepare digests of things so you could find them OCR.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sounds good to me.
thank you.
Okay, so our future org chart would look like this, just adding that one position. Battery might be dead. Okay, so what does success look like for our office? I would say providing council members with timely and accurate support, compliant public meeting notices, timely agenda publishing, responsiveness to incoming calls, emails, and requests for information, conflict of interest form filing period compliance, and we've done rather well within the last few years, so we'll keep that up. Accuracy in record keeping and certification of council actions, department objectives completed within budget, and since I've been here at least, we've been able to do that. Streamlined processes, which we work on consistently, and continuous learning and development for our staff. Some challenges that we face, and this looks like a lot, and I think I just want to be transparent. So I'll just start with staff capacity. This is a high demand office for information, for documentation, just for informal stop-bys, just pop-ins. So we are stretched pretty thin with the staff that we do have. Also with the increased number of public meetings, joint meetings, FOIA requests, and requests for council's attendance and support for various things, that requires staff support most of the time. And stability in the office. When there's turnover in other departments, it's amazing what demand that can create on our small office. Agenda management. Our timeliness depends on the timeliness of departments and whatever items are coming before us. So usually we do get it out on time, but if we're at the last minute, usually we're trying to pull it together from somewhere else. Boards and commissions, and you all know this, we've had issues with recruitment and people volunteering to serve on our boards and commissions, so that's why the cards were created with the QR codes. Aligning boards and commissions with our strategic plan going forward, I think is going to be a challenge, and making sure we have the right boards, and that the boards that we already have are still what we need, or whether we need to evaluate those. Follow up on findings from the Spring 2023 study, which also was about boards and commissions, and just making sure we're moving in the right direction. Sister Cities funding and direction. Historically, Sister Cities has been given an allotment of $15,000 annually. There was a year that it was skipped, so they got double in the following year. We have not been able to find the documentation for that approval, for that funding going forward. We found where they were supposed to be fundraising, but we're kind of piecing things together, going back through old documents. So we are still working on this piece of it, but historically they have been allotted the $15,000 a year, and they use that for grants, for travel scholarships, and for the work that they do in the city related to Sister Cities.
So, do you think, I'm just not necessarily asking you, but just generally, Sam, is that something we should act on during our budget time this year, just to, because I think we should continue to do, but I just want to make sure the $15,000, because what I'm understanding is that we think that we have the okay, but you couldn't find like a resolution type of thing what council did.
No, but I think we kind of just informally made a decision that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
To keep the funding annually, and they do have a program where they issue those funds annually based on projects that link the sister cities. So I think we just would need to formalize that.
Yeah, and I would say that, I mean, that's the kind of thing that Ms. Thomas will be able to bring into her budget team meeting with us.
Okay.
So as she's preparing her budget for the year, those are the things that she can consider, and then we'll be looking for those specific things to be presented as, if it's something that needs more money or something new, that's usually what we want to brainstorm about.
Thank you.
And also, if council has any direction that you would want to provide for sister cities, they do welcome that. Right now, they are operating under guidelines that have been approved. There are bylaws that have been approved, and they are open to your suggestions if you have any. Another challenge for us is professional development and training for our staff. With just the three of us, usually our training is at a conference or something related to our membership organizations, which we all can't be gone at the same time, really. So we usually switch out who can go to which training, but we'll continue to work it out as a team for certification. Our certification processes can take at least 3 years for the first level certification. So I have achieved certification, but I do offer that to our staff if they want to pursue that.
And that requires some continual education for your.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, we do have some funds budgeted, but there's been more interest in actually attaining those certifications. And my last challenge that I listed is just data analysis systems. Right now, we don't have much that we can lean on as far as quickly being able to gather data. So that is something that I'll be working toward, at least seeing what's out there for us to be able to record, to gather, and possibly work with other staff such as the budget office to be able to put that together. Okay. And opportunities. Sister Cities annual grant opportunities for cultural projects with Sister Cities. They do open up the process during the beginning of the year, usually January, February. Increase local visibility and education about Sister Cities is one of their goals. They want to bring more programs locally rather than most of the projects being sent abroad, and still determining the feasibility of that Sister City relationship with Wayway Tenango. For our clerk office, our opportunities that we listed is building capacity and a team that meets or exceeds the demands of compliance and support, and that's for council and for the public. Continuing to streamline procedures to optimize timeliness and accuracy, seeking tools and opportunities to implement data analytics, and continuous learning for clerk and staff. For council, you have your upcoming legislative agenda, your January organizational meeting and retreat, training through your member organizations such as VML and NLC, and future budget meetings where you'll get to have all the discussion you need. And with that, any questions?
Thank you.
Ms. Thomas?
Does anybody care that there's a sign on the door that says you cannot come in? See someone at the kiosk, there's no one there. It's a city council meeting and you're hiding behind a closed door. Please, somebody do something.
Okay. We'll figure this out. Obviously, we don't know when we're sitting up here, so,
No, but I mean, am I explaining it wrong? 4 or 5 people here.
well, there's never more than that at 4 o'clock, but anyway. Okay, next, Mr. Stroman?
She did very well being on the other side of the camera. Very good.
All right, let's see if Mr. Delahunt, if you'll bring the PowerPoint on, please. Thank
There we go.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, councilors. It's my pleasure to give you a very brief overview of the City Attorney's Office and some of the budget considerations that are relevant to the operation of our office. I will tell you that today I celebrate my 3-month, 2-day anniversary, and so far it's been a wonderful ride, and I'm very much looking forward to the good things that I think lie ahead, both for this city and both for the role of our office in bringing those good things to pass. City Attorney Administration, this is a dense slide, and so I'm going to summarize it for you. A municipal law office like ours has an extraordinarily broad practice area. When I have given similar talks in other contexts, I've said about the only thing that we don't do is get people divorces and prosecute felonies. Now that's a tiny exaggeration, but not much. Think about the vast array of litigation that we manage for this city, the vast array of transactions, both real estate, transactional, public, finance, taxation, FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, COIA, the Conflicts of Interest Act, just risk management issues, personnel issues, which are huge issues for us. I just leave you with a thought that if there's a legal issue out there on the civil side of our profession, our office tends to touch it. Now that's exhilarating in the sense that you get to pick up something new every day, but it's also very challenging because of the range of things that we need to handle. I wanted to do this slide just to give you a short sort of snapshot, literally, of our office. You can see this is one of our office lunches that we periodically have on the downtown mall. They wanted this to be a nice picture, so I was directed to go to the very rear of the table for that photograph.
Nice
So
to
I
know
think
you
that
can
was
follow
successful.
And I noticed that the glare has got you kind of obscured also.
That's very deliberate, by the way.
But the attorney that follows direction, there you go. It's important.
I want to take a moment and talk about our philosophy because I think that's important. We believe that public service is the highest calling to which lawyers and legal professionals can aspire. And that's important because the challenges that I think we face as local government attorneys are more than made up for the zeal that I think we bring to public service. Being able to do the work that we do to help the process along, both the legislative process that council and policy setting process that council brings to the implementation of that process through the city manager's office and through all of the departments and boards and commissions that we represent. I hesitate as a lawyer with a keen interest in the First Amendment to use this term, but public service in our profession really is a vocation. And for those who have it, nothing else is as satisfying. And I will tell you that from personal experience, I left public service for a while, well into my career, and I couldn't wait to get back. And I think I speak for our every lawyer and administrative professional on our staff that we all feel that way. Now, it's appropriate, I think, at this juncture to talk about what our goal is as an office, and it's a very straightforward one, to be the best local government law office in this Commonwealth. Now, that's, I don't think, a far-fetched aspiration for this reason. Charlottesville is a city that very much punches above its weight in many, many areas. And that is reflected in the work that our office does, because we are called upon to punch above our weight in many ways on issues like form-based zoning, collective bargaining, the transactions that we do, both real estate and contractual, that are really very similar to the same kinds of things that I did in my prior job in a city that was about 5 times the size of Charlottesville. And some of those issues, including collective bargaining and form-based zoning, are not even being seized upon by some of the largest localities in the Commonwealth. It's really a very small group in Central Virginia and some in Northern Virginia. So when you start with that base, touching those kinds of areas, I think that the aspiration to be the very best law firm that we can be, both for the council, for the administration, and for the residents of this city, is a realistic one, and one that we take very seriously. This is our staffing, and as you can see, we are a very flat organization. You will hear me talk about the fact that we're a law firm, and everybody's a partner, and everybody has an important role to play. The other thing I would point out is you see here a total of 6 lawyers and 2 legal administrative professionals. We are extraordinarily lean, I think, for the work that we do. This is just a very simple slide about our budget, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time because there'll be more to come here, except to say that one of the reductions the city clerk had alluded to earlier, which is a change in the location of the FOIA officer and records retention professional from our office to the city clerk's office. We are absolutely fully in support of that, by the way, because one of the interesting things is the FOIA officer is a very important client of ours, and we give that person legal advice very regularly, and so having that division we think makes sense. But there'll be plenty more to come on that, and I won't spend any more time unless there are questions.
I recall way back, I don't know if it was this year or last year, things kind of run together, but some notion of a ramped up version of whatever law, I guess citation.
For the code?
Yeah, for the code. A different,
Wanting to get it updated regularly,
Yeah.
and not just once every 5 years or whenever somebody
yeah,
thinks
there
about
was
it.
some different sort of module or add-on to, I don't know if you guys were pursuing that. It's well beyond my.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, and I think there are two issues going on. First of all, as we have reviewed the code, we've noticed some little wrinkles that we'd like to get straightened out. And I think as our office becomes, as we begin to catch up on some of the workload that perhaps built up in the approximately 6 months before I arrived, we want to return to that. But the other issue, I think, is to look seriously at a recodification of the city code, which addresses some of those issues that I think you're talking about. Is the city code laid out in a way that makes sense, that is efficient, or is the placing of various legal provisions intuitive?
Yeah, and all that makes total sense. I think what I'm referring to is like some sort of new IT system that helps. Anyway, that's not
Jay?
very helpful, but
Please.
We currently use Municode
That's the
as
one.
our vendor, and I believe there are some features that we are not, our contract does not use right now, so we probably could stand to look at the contract again.
So I think one of the things that I take away, Councilor Pinkston, is we need to pull that contract and see what features there are to make that more user-friendly. Charlottesville is a relatively late arrival to Municode, in fact, and so ensuring that it's great that we're there now, but are we there in a way that is most advantageous for the council, for the manager, and for our residents? Is something we should look into.
Thank you.
There's a statement here about objectives, and I'm just going to mention two that I think are overriding for this office. The first is the strategic plan, which the city manager alluded to earlier. Our role is to provide the legal counsel which advances the council's strategic plan, and we're intimately familiar with all 10 of those goals, and there are a number of legal issues embedded in those that we aspire to ensure that we're doing everything possible that council's will is reflected in the strategic plan is being carried out. The second item is perhaps obvious, but it's important to measure, and that is on every legal matter that we touch, it is our duty to provide the very best legal outcome that we can. That legal outcome can take many forms and can be very nuanced depending on the type of legal issue. When it's litigation, winning, or resolving a case on terms that are favorable to the city. On a transaction, ensuring that the deal goes through when that's in the best interest of the city, and ensuring that there are that those terms are fair to the city and protect the city from liability. And I have some others here that in the interest of time, I'll just mention things that we're looking at. One of the things that the city manager discusses on a regular basis with staff, including me, is the emphasis on processes, and I think that's something that we embrace enthusiastically because we think that can help us deliver our services better. We are going to ask of this council and of the city manager significant investment in professional training because that is so incredibly important in making us more effective at what we do. We want to cross-train our legal professionals. That work is underway now, because we must be nimble as a law firm in order to do the best job that we can. And the last one is to provide training to city staff, and that's something that's already going on now, both at the lead team level and at the departmental level, that we think is helpful. And I'll speak a little bit more about that perhaps when I give a report at the next meeting, but we're excited about all of those things. Success factors. So we want to win. We want things to go smoothly from a legal standpoint. And you can see some of the measures that we're looking at here. One of the issues that we grapple with is workload. There's a tremendous amount of legal work for a city of our size. And so marshaling legal resources we think are important. And then obviously the other two bullets I think are straightforward and things I've alluded to earlier. So I won't spend any more time on those. So challenges. What are the challenges that we have? I'm still new to the job. I would say workload is a significant challenge, but one that we are I think, successfully addressing. Procedures, tools and technology, and staffing. And you'll be hearing a bit more from us on some of those issues as we progress. But along with challenges, there are opportunities. I'd like to talk about those. And some of the things that we're trying to concentrate on is building the city government's law firm, building our identity as the city government's law firm. From this council, of course, the manager, the deputy city managers, but down to ordinary employees who may have an issue that we can help to address. And when I was at a briefing that we recently did on some training, one of the first things that I said was, it's so great to see so many of our clients here today. And I think I want them to understand that we're here for them, zealously represent them, protect them, and I think that that's very important. We want to refine processes. I've spoken to that and develop new ones. I won't spend any more time on that. And this last bullet, developing technology, Councilor Pinkston, you've already alluded to one issue that we may have there. I will say that that does not necessarily mean buying new stuff. I'm incredibly impressed with the information technology resources that the city has, and we're working on a process improvement that actually involves the development of a software app, I suppose you'd call it, that's going to allow us to be more effective in delivering our legal services. So we're grateful for that. And then before I take questions, I do want to take a moment to say how much I appreciate this council's confidence in consenting to my appointment as city attorney. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to be here and how exciting it is to be in a city like Charlottesville. Thank you.
I have just, go ahead.
You go.
I have just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
You said that the staff is extremely lean for the amount of workload that there is. Do you think that it is too lean?
So since we've been talking about budget, there will likely be a request for some additional resources. And I'll give you a quick example. The brave new world of collective bargaining is going to generate a significant amount. It is, but will in the future, once those contracts are in place, generate additional legal work by virtue of those labor contracts. That's just one example, but yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think the capacity is worth investing in, so
Right.
thank you.
So, may I call you Jay?
Please.
Okay. So, Jay, you talked about the volume of work that is currently here, even before we get to collective bargaining. Is that volume unusual because of COVID and we got backed up? Is that volume the nature of the beast for legal issues of cities? Because you alluded to the fact, as it relates to Charlottesville, a city of our size has a very heavy legal volume. What do you attribute that to?
The fact that this council is embarking on initiatives that are important and valuable, but that generate legal work. Form-based zoning, your contemplation of your new zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And we've gotten support and help on that, which has been very important. Collective bargaining, which I've already alluded to. Okay. Some of the programs that the city engages in, the loan programs associated with some of our residents that go to the issue of affordability. And then just a period during which you had a support that was remote and some, which was very effective and very helpful, but certainly a buildup in that period that we are now working through. Okay. And doing so successfully, I think, but it certainly has kept us busy. We're not bored.
Okay. So you're going to keep us off the front page? Is that your job?
I'm going to keep you off the front page, and I only want you appearing in an appeals court as the appellant, not as the appellee.
Okay.
And to your point, much of the work that we do is done quietly. We want to preserve the attorney-client privilege. We want to preserve the attorney work product doctrine. You're aware of that. We like that. Sometimes lawyers are best seen and heard quietly. And so I've said this to the city manager on a number of occasions. I'll say it to council too. Our job is to protect this council, protect the city manager, protect the city departments. And we will do that with, I think you'll agree, incredible zeal and dedication.
In many cases, protect us from ourselves.
Sir.
Questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Evening, Council. I think I'm batting cleanup for you today for your first part of your meeting. So, Chris Engel, Director of Economic Development, pleased to be with you to share a little bit about our office and our FY25 outlook as we're embarking upon a new fiscal year cycle. So, let me thank you, David. So, Office of Economic Development, we like to consider ourselves small but mighty in many ways, and I'll get to an org chart here in a minute that shows our staffing, but we constitute another very small piece of the overall city pie, about $600,000 to operate our office in FY24, which is, to give context, less than 1/10 of the entire budget, I like to tell folks. But we're involved in a variety of things. I describe us as a Swiss Army knife sometimes, a multi-tool, if you will. We get involved in a little bit of a lot of things. We're a mile wide and an inch deep in a lot of ways, trying to help the business community do better. And that's everything from startups to existing businesses to companies that might move here, to connecting residents to opportunities to be employed at a city business. And so our mission hasn't changed over the years. We're a catalyst for private and public initiatives that create employment opportunities and a sustainable economy. The strategic plan that you all just adopted very recently, we fold up under economic prosperity most directly, but some of our work would touch on a few other elements of the 9 key areas that you have adopted. So some recent highlights, just share with you. Most of you probably receive our bi-monthly newsletter. If you don't, we should certainly get you on that list. We do an annual report that's a little more comprehensive in terms of identifying things throughout a course of a 12-month period that you certainly receive hard copy and digital version. But just some recent highlights that are a little more relevant in the last few months, just to kind of orient you to what we're doing. The Ready to Work program is a new program that we've launched. It's in the workforce space, led by Jenny Bechet, one of our newer employees. And that's a program that connects folks with some pretty rapid training in the soft skills primarily, as we continue to hear that soft skills are a challenge for employment across a variety of spectrums here in the city. So some very quick 20 hours worth of soft skill training, and then some coaching, work preparing resumes, doing some mock interviewing, and then connecting them with a guaranteed interview. That's really what we are bringing to the table, and that's an interview with a city employer that has a need. And so it's in its pilot phase. We had our first graduate of the soft skills training just about a couple of weeks ago. And then we have about 25 folks that are in the pipeline now at one phase or another of getting that training, and then we're connecting them with guaranteed interviews with the hopes that they get employed. So that's an example of a program there. We facilitated a number of announcements in partnership with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership and the Governor's Office. Two local companies were beneficiaries of the Virginia Jobs Employment Program. And we were very instrumental in our business visitation program, which visits businesses on a regular basis, and making them aware that they were qualifying for that and helping them through that process, and facilitating those announcements. 53 new jobs and about $5 million in investment were categorized just in those 2 announcements, which happened over the summer. You all are familiar with the city's support for the Beacon project being run by New Hill Development Corporation, and we were instrumental in a number of facets there, including 2 state grants that are in process, and then the city contribution as well. And we're about to finalize that grant agreement with them as their project is rapidly picking up steam. So we're pleased to be a supporter there, and hope that will bring additional opportunity in the food service space, which has been significant in this community for a while, and create opportunities for smaller businesses to get training, get started, and get their legs under them in the new commercial kitchen, which this community has not had.
Did I see an office for them on, like, on Market Street or something?
They currently took over a space on Market Street that was previously occupied by another nonprofit, the PB&J Fund, you might recognize the name, which had a small kitchen in it as part of their mission. That's a temporary space. They took over an existing lease. When the new facility on Carlton is completed, they intend to move all their activity over
I
there.
mean, I was
Yes.
surprised because I knew they were talking about Carlton. I was thinking, what's going on?
Yes, it's temporary.
Okay. Thank you.
You all are certainly aware of our economic development strategic plan, which was done this year with the help of a consultant and presented to council and at multiple engagements. That's now completed, and we're ramping up to start actually working towards that, tackling that plan. It's fairly significant. It's our first comprehensive plan in at least 10 years, so we are ramping up to start digging in on that. And then another element that many don't realize, but the parking, off-street parking for the city, which constitutes about 1,700 parking spaces through 2 garages and 4 lots, rolls up under the Office of Economic Development. And this past year, significant renovations were done at both Market Street and Water Street to preserve that asset for the future. And as you see here in our org chart, you'll see our staff member that's affiliated with that work. Let me see here. Here we go. Oh, that's going to be coming. So the strategic plan that I mentioned, just a refresher on the 5 key goals that we have coming out of that: equitable entrepreneurship, innovation, and growth, intentional growth with companies that are here predominantly, not doing so much attraction, but helping our existing companies with their growth. Pathways for opportunity, and that's really that connecting residents to opportunities for work and employment, gainful employment. The Ready to Work program speaks to that. Creative placemaking is speaking to the fact that we have a treasure here in the downtown mall and other places within the city that need to be recognized and maintained and have investment in them so that they continue to be a long-term asset. And then storytelling is another way of talking about communications and messaging, and our consultant recognized the fact that we don't spend a lot of time and energy on that, and we need to do better telling our own story. So we made that an actual element of the plan to make sure we focus on it. Some key metrics that are affiliated with that plan. You've seen this at least one other time, but I just wanted to share with you some of the metrics that we would look at. Many of these are not driven 100% by the work of our office, but are really more citywide kind of metrics, just to say what direction are the trends going. And so we'll be tracking those to attach them to some of our work, but also so the city has a sense of, are these things going up or down? Median household income, employment numbers, business numbers. And then we have a whole set of these that we've identified for measuring communities of color in terms of household income, education, home ownership rates, and things of that nature. And we specifically developed these in a way that these are derived using a methodology that uses census data as its background source, so that we're not having to hire a consultant to create these on an annual basis. So we have a baseline, and we'll be annually updating these and having these available as part of our work with the strategic plan. Let's see here. Here's our org chart. We are a total of 6 full-time equivalents at the moment. And we have 1 vacancy and 2 vacancies, one that's about to be filled. We have a new hire starting this month in the role of the assistant director. And then we have 1 other position that we're working with HR on to reclassify and get that put out so that we can hopefully by the end of the year be fully staffed at the 6 FTEs that we have an allotment for. So that's what we look like currently, minus the 1 position that's circled in red that's open.
Has that been open for a while, or is that a new position, or when you?
It's not a new position. It's going to be a reworked position. It has been open for about 3 months, or we had a departure earlier this year.
Okay.
That made that an opening, but we're trying to beef it up a little bit so that we can attract hopefully better candidates to that position. So of the 6, 5 of the FTEs break down on the economic development side. The one other is focused on parking. But as we look forward, we haven't fully put together our budget request yet. It's early, it's only October, and we're early to go in this process, but we don't anticipate any major increases or decreases other than cost of living. Most of our budget is comprised of staff support. The one position that I mentioned, we're hoping to fill that by the end of the year. And our strategic plan is now complete, and implementation we are embarking on that as we speak. The Parking Enterprise Fund, no major changes there in terms of staffing. We'll expect to stay at one person, the parking manager, to handle that work. We are anticipating a rate increase to keep up with a monthly parking rate increase to keep up with our traditional every couple of years increase to help defray enhanced costs related to maintaining the parking. Transient rates we anticipate remaining unchanged. Structural repairs I referenced earlier, fairly significant work that has happened just recently. And we've been working with our new parking manager to really enhance the event-related service that folks receive when they come for a special event. As you can imagine, when lots of vehicles come at one time and leave at one time, it becomes challenging to get out, and we've had some complaints in that area, and we're working to alleviate those, likely to include future new equipment that will help us with that significantly. So more to come on that, but just a quick overview of that, and that concludes the slideshow for today. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
One question about the event parking, has there been any thought given to, anybody who comes in after 5 o'clock, they pay us $5 up front, or something up front, and boom, that's it?
Yes, considerable thought's been given to that. Our equipment doesn't really accommodate it in its current form, which we can do a workaround, and we've considered that, but we haven't taken that step. But that is an option that does happen in many places. That generally could include receiving cash, which is something we would prefer to stay away from. So we have to have the type of equipment that can handle that on entry. There's a couple options, but yes, we are exploring it. The new technology for parking actually moves away from gates and moves towards different mechanisms for capturing payment, using apps and different things. So we're exploring all of those.
So, Chris, your budget is, I think, is at $600,000.
Roughly.
So, if there was a, proposal, a business wanted to come in and needed some help, you wanted to attract them, you would then turn to the CEDA, the Economic Development Authority. Is that kind of what that's there for?
Yes. So, if an incentive that were to be offered by the city, that would generally happen through the Economic Development Authority. We have a couple of performance agreements in place, and actually you all will be receiving a request for Friendship Court Phase 2, which has a performance agreement for Phase 1. Those roll through the EDA, and those allocate city dollars, city future tax dollars typically for that support. So that would happen through the EDA, but it's essentially a pass-through from the city in terms of the tax dollars that we're generating.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I know that not many years, 7, 8 years ago, that Charlottesville, and I don't know if it was Charlottesville, Albemarle, this community, was one of the top places to go for small businesses to start, to get going. A lot of, probably spin off from UVA. Is that still the case? I know we don't have the capacity to attract, a big company. We just don't, I assume we don't have the space for it. But I'm just trying to get a sense of where where we are kind of in a business attracting field.
Yeah, so we don't do a great deal of, we don't do any outward business attraction. Many other economic development organizations would typically go on marketing trips and talk to folks and things like that. We've never done that. We've not had the need for that. As a 10 square mile city with most of our real estate spoken for in residential, you know, we don't have business parks or industrial parks that the city manages or maintains. And we don't have a lot of private sector vacancy. So we don't engage in much of that. So our focus is typically on entrepreneurship and helping small fledgling ideas grow, but also more specifically that kind of second stage business that starts to grow rapidly and needs some assistance. The two that I referenced that received the state BJIP dollars were in that boat, where they evolved out of the university and over time got to a place where they were growing rapidly and thus qualifying. So we spend a lot of time trying to help an existing business that's here that wants to grow from 5 people to 10 people to 20 people, as opposed to that outbound marketing that doesn't really pay off for us, and we don't have the opportunity to do that.
So what are you doing? One of the things you mentioned, Chris, was we don't tell our story. The city of Charlottesville does a lot, and all you hear are the negatives. We don't do a good job of talking about the positive things that we do. What are you doing to encourage that, but more importantly, what supports are you doing for minority businesses, particularly those of African Americans, indigenous people, other race individuals? Because some of them have small businesses, some of them are trying to start up. What supports and mentoring are there for those individuals?
Sure. So it's a two-part question. I'll answer the last part first. We have the Business Equity Fund, which was created by council about 5 years ago, and has been, it is held at CIC. So that's a revolving loan fund for communities of color, BIPOC, if you will, small businesses that can qualify for low to no interest. So it's 0 to 2% essentially, based upon their other factors. So that's been in place. Our Go Startup program is intended to also pair with that as a very entry-level program for folks that have an idea and want to kind of get some business basics before they take the full CIC course or Piedmont course or something else. So we have at least those two components. We also made a contribution this year to the Envision grant, which is housed at the United Way, also in conjunction with the county and the United Way fundraising, which is grants specific to minority businesses that are growing and that been around for at least 2 years and are growing. And 7 folks just received those awards last month. So the first round of that happened. But with respect to telling our story, both as a city and as the Economic Development Office, it's two pieces, but they do go together. We need to do better at both. You know, the city doesn't have a real strong brand at the moment. I think with the addition of a director of communication, that's probably one of the elements that will be worked on. Internally, we need to tell our office's story better through our newsletter and other mechanisms, and we're trying to figure out exactly what those right pieces are, so that we can better tell the stories of people that are starting and growing businesses here, but also our impact on them and how it folds into the overall economy and helps all of us.
Okay, so the information about the BIPOC organizations is going to be in the next newsletter.
Which one?
The ones that just received your Envision grants, that'll be in the next newsletter?
Yeah, those are public now, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that Friendship Corps performance agreement is a perfect example of how the EDA can be used creatively in a really positive way. Same question I had for the city manager's office. I know council had allocated some one-time funds to your department. What is the status of those funds currently?
Yeah, a part of those got used for the contribution to Beacon. I have to check the remaining balance. I should know that, but I think we do have some left and a little bit of runway on that. There are some other elements that the city manager and I have been talking about recently with regard to homeless intervention and the downtown mall and surrounding areas that may speak for some of that. So I think some conversations are being had about that.
Yeah. And the other question, obviously, the city recently acquired K-Tech. Has there been any conversation yet about if that could open up opportunities for the GO program, some of the grants and loans you mentioned to kind of grow and expand in a more systematic way, if that's kind of a opportunity there?
We haven't formally had those conversations. I think we are interested and willing and kind of waiting for the dust to settle on the direction of what is K-Tech and how that plays out. But they have been a partner, and there's no reason they shouldn't want to be and will be in the future, but we haven't specifically gotten into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a really great conversation with Kim Powell from the schools a couple weeks ago, and it seems like they're really getting aligned on how they're going to make that work. I can't remember the name of the person from the...
Sarah Morton.
Yeah, Sarah Morton. So it seems like this would be a great time for you to reach out to them and see how you can be plugged in.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
You ready?
We're ready.
For the
City manager,
We're ready. Go for it.
You're not presenting? Okay,
is it?
we're done.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I was just wondering.
It was me.
I saw an interloper in the back. I didn't know if there was something else we were about to hear. Yeah.
You speak next time. Wait your turn.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Motion for a city council closed session. I move that city council close this open meeting and convene a closed meeting for the following purposes. One, as authorized by the Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A8, for consultation with the city attorney regarding legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice, specifically legal matters regarding the proposed Zero East High Street development, including the appeal of the Planning Commission's review pursuant to Code of Virginia Section 15.2-2232, and number two, as authorized by Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for the discussion and consideration of an appointment to the Charlottesville Retirement Plan Commission.
Second?
Okay. Let's see. Casting our votes, yes. Okay, that motion passes. Council is now going to go into a closed meeting. We will return at 6:30. For those joining by Zoom, there's a different link for the 6:30 meeting, so sign on there. See you in about 52 minutes.